As 2020 draws to a close, I thought rather than write a column for the newsletter, I would do a short video just looking back over the past 12 months and thinking about where we will go in 2021. The year was indeed remarkable for so many reasons, from the bushfires at the beginning of the year through to COVID-19 and the impact that it's had upon not just agriculture, but industry generally. Zoom meetings became the norm. The phrase, "I forgot to unmute my microphone," appeared to become the norm in discussions. But nevertheless, the dairy industry was able to come through relatively unscathed. There were some areas that suffered. The hospitality trade was one such area, but customers at the supermarket continued to buy fresh, nutritious milk and dairy produce on a level not seen for many a year. And we express our thanks to each and every person that has continued to support the Australian dairy industry by such ways. But it wasn't just that. The Parliamentary Code commenced this year, and it too had a real impact on the way that the industry started to look at itself, particularly after 2016 with Murray Goulburn and its collapse and the clawback fiasco that occurred. It went some way to start to restore the trust and transparency that is so vitally important within our industry. It ensures that milk supply agreements by 1 January next year must be compliant with the code. Plain English contracts, clauses that are clearly identified and understood. And this will ensure that transparency that's so important, that restoration of trust can start to be built upon. We had a number of Senate inquiries. We had a New South Wales parliamentary inquiry, both looking into the sustainability of the dairy industry within this country. The Senate inquiry and the New South Wales parliamentary inquiry are still to report. Both will be important in a number of ways. At the federal sphere, it will be an opportunity to once again highlight the issues that are confronting the dairy industry, particularly given, as I think we would all agree, the market failure to which we are currently confronting and have done so since deregulation. The New South Wales Parliamentary Committee will look at a number of areas about the sustainability and viability of the dairy industry in this state. It will look at the operation and functions of the Fresh Milk and Dairy Advocate. It will look at how best the industry could see its way forward to ensure that the industry in this state continues to remain a prosperous one, ensuring that future generations of dairy farmers have a way forward. If you'd like to go and look at what we at Dairy Connect gave in evidence, then the link will be within the newsletter, and I encourage you to do so. In it, we look at areas such as research, development and extension. We talk about how the industry should be looking at itself. We discussed milk sampling, testing and calibration, amongst many other. And I would suggest that if you have an interest, then please follow the link. It goes for about 40, 50 minutes, but I think that you may find it of interest. At that federal sphere as well, we saw Joel Fitzgibbon step down as the Shadow Minister for Agriculture and Ed Husak step into the role. We thank Joel for his strong support of agriculture over many years, and we look forward to working with Ed Husak as he becomes to understand the important role that agriculture plays within the Australian economy, something that we well know he understands given his previous portfolios. It's also important that we acknowledge the support from Minister Littleproud, as well as the former Agricultural Minister, Bridget McKenzie, who was a strong supporter of the Parliamentary Code, and we thank her for that support. We will continue with truth and labelling an area that regrettably we could have been leading the world in. We are still waiting for the federal government to move on this. It is something that they should be able to do so without much issue. We've been advocating for this since 2017. We will continue to do so. It is vitally important that truth in labelling is implemented, that plant-based drinks are called for what they are, and that we're able to ensure the strong protection of milk terms, dairy terms, for future generations of dairy farmers. We have called out Peta for some of the issues that they've been saying that we in the dairy industry do. They are wrong. Dairy farmers are strong environmental managers who only want the best for their animals. They want to make sure that they are able to provide the best support and health for their cows that they can. And we will continue to state that strongly and in a vibrant way so that we're able to represent the industry as best as we possibly can. At our recent annual conference, which was just held, David Palmer, who's been retained as the consultant to the Australian Dairy Plan, came and provided his observations on the industry as he sees them. He should have a great understanding of agriculture, given his background at MLA and elsewhere. If you'd like to listen to what David had to say, and it is of great interest, the link will also be in the newsletter. I also suggest that you continue to listen after David concludes, as Claire Miller, who's been recently appointed as the Chief Executive of the New South Wales Irrigators Council, was able to provide an overview of how water is impacting upon dairy and the issues that water has in relation to the dairy industry in New South Wales at the current time. Where to for 2021? Well, let's hope there'll be no more lockdowns, that the industry will start to be prosperous, sustainable, and viable into the future. We need to find ways to retain the number of dairy farmers on the land. At November 2020, there were 534 registered dairy farms in this state, down from over 1,000 in 2006. Since 2018, we've lost over 100 dairy farms within New South Wales. We need to find ways to be able to stop that from occurring. We need to find unity of purpose, a common message amongst fresh milk state producers. And in consultation with Queensland Dairy Farmers Organisation and New South Wales Farmers Association Dairy Committee, Dairy Connect will continue to engage to find ways that we can find that common purpose. And we look forward to those continued discussions into the future. Finally, I'd like to wish you and your loved ones, on behalf of the Chairman of Dairy Connect, George Davey, the President of the Farmers Group, Graham Forbes, our board and Farmers Group and members, a most merry and holy Christmas. And may 2021 be a prosperous year for us all, and a way that we will ensure the industry continues to not only be sustainable, but as I mentioned, prosperous. Thank you for listening. Please contact me if at any time you have any issues you may like to raise. And once again, we wish you well for Christmas.